Keith Baldeo, and I am going to direct my show today. I'll call the show the Sirrano Show, not Dallas Pulse News per se, but I wanted to speak to Republicans, especially in Texas and Dallas. I am a little bit confused about what's going on in the city of Dallas, so I think I'm going to need some answers. And at the end of this show, I'm going to ask you to answer it for me, and maybe you can post it in the comments. When I ran for office, first of all, I ran a newspaper in New Jersey for 12 years, 10 years. I supported Democrats and whoever else I thought was best to serve the people. And after 4 years of realizing Democratic philosophies and policies were destructive and detrimental to the community, I decided I was not going to support them anymore because it was just too much to watch Latinos suffer, to watch not integrated in the community, to watch the Black community be just left alone to themselves, crime, no jobs, no skills, no training, no nothing, no community, recreation, and the Democrats were getting rich and their friends were being rewarded with jobs and whatever else you get rewarded for when you take over a government and people that supports you. So I am in Dallas, and I ran for Dallas District 10 councilman, the council seat. And when I was doing that, I went into the Republican Party because I thought, as a conservative, now I try not to alienate Democrats, especially Blacks and Latinos, because I know the mental philosophy that the Democratic Party uses to influence them, to mesmerize, to manipulate their minds. When I was part of the Democratic Party, as a president of a newspaper, I was in their war room, and one of the philosophies that they were coming up with was, we need an action plan. And in that war room, their action plan was to make the Republicans guilty for what the Democrats did in the early century. And I sat there and I watched this whole thing go down. One of the people in that room, was strategizing the whole concept for the battle, was talking about the city is high in crime. There is no money coming in. There's no ratables. There is, no jobs, no recreation, no skills. And yet the city of Patterson had the money, and they did not want to spend it in the Latino and Black community. And so they came up with this philosophy that the Republicans have not been in power for 30 years in that city. So what they did was they said, okay, so we'll say that their corruption for 30 years has caused the damage that is going on right now. And that was the talking point. That's how they came up with that. So then signs went up. I was part of this. Republican corruption caused taxpayers millions. That was what they came up with. Because they had to hide all the failures, all the parts where they couldn't save the city. Black men was getting killed in the street, grabbed into drugs and in crime, and they couldn't fix it because the policies of the Democratic Party doesn't work. And I'm going to tell you why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it doesn't belong to them. I was doing some research on who the Republican. I just came into this I'm from another planet and I just arrived and what's going on here? Let me find out who's who. So this is what they said about the Democratic Party and what they stand for. Emphasizing equality, protecting environment, strengthening social safety through liberalism. That's new, that was added. They support voting rights and minority rights. Multiculturalism. Well, they support liberal secularism. Some of the things here, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it the Republican Party that fought for slavery to free black folks, because my Google search says this, and I'm trying to look at this as if I've never heard it before. I'm just going to do my homework. I'm just going to do my research. The Republican Party emerged in 1954 to combat the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the expansion of slavery into American territories. Expansion of slavery, which means saving black folks. The early Republican Party consists of Northern Protestants, factory workers, professional businessmen, prosperous farmers, and former black slaves. So I'm a little bit confused when I'm in Dallas. And I go to, the Democratic Party, better known for different names. That's a whole different story with them. But when I went into the Republican Party, because as a conservative, if I were to identify what kind of conservative I am, I was at a meeting, a public meeting. I attend a lot of public meetings, so I know all the crap that's going on in government. And the rip-off, the contracts, the change orders, I know all that stuff. And during the meeting, about 4 Democrats walked down, and I'm in a conversation with 2 Republicans. And they ask, is Sirrano a Republican or a by the way, my name is Sirrano Keith Baldeo, if I hadn't said that. Is Sirrano a Democrat or Republican? And the Democrat director of the county said, I think Sirrano is the kind of guy that, as long as you don't speak anything about his Christian faith, I think he's going to be good with you. And strangely enough, that was a nail in the head. I am a Christian, and the foundation of my faith, my belief, my strength, my job, how I think, how I act, is based on those values. And I don't care if you're a Republican carrying it out or Democratic carrying it out, just carry it out. Don't make laws against the gospel. Don't speak up against the faith. And because the other religions have that kind of stuff. Ronald Reagan, I heard, had a sign on his table, on his desk, and it says, it doesn't matter who gets the flag on top of the hill, as long as the flag gets on top of the hill. That's kind of like what I believe. It doesn't matter to me if a Republican or a Democrat protects this gospel, as long as it's protected. But we have an issue. We have problems here. Because when I went to lobby, I couldn't get into the Democratic Party because they are so ingrained on hate. And you have to sign documentation. When I was running for office, I was sent this. If you did not sign, there was a gay organization that wanted me to sign a document. And I said, I can't do that. And you have to support gay rights. And look, you can do whatever you want, but I'm not going to go against Christians or Muslims or Jews who believe otherwise. They're strong, conservative people like that. I have to stay in the middle as a councilman. So they told me Councilman Adam Magoo signed it. I said, he signed this? And they said, yes. And I said, well, I can't sign it, so I guess I won't. I'm going to run on what I need to run on. And I didn't sign it. Wasn't invited to their meetings because I didn't sign it. AFL-CIO, the liberal organization that is anti-business, wanted me to sign a document as well. I said, I'm not going to sign any document. Well, you're going to sign this document and you're going to support us fully 100% or else. So this is how politicians sell their soul in the city of Dallas. They sign stuff. But you won't know that because they won't tell you, but I'm telling you. So anyway, I went to the Republicans because the Democrats were asking me to sign all kind of nonsense. And I said, I'm going to sign something. I will respect your rights because the Constitution said I have to. But I'm not going to sign that I'm going to go against the church or the synagogues or even the mosque just because, you want me to. So I go to the Republicans. I started going to their meetings. I started trying to learn the ropes in Dallas. And I couldn't find the help that they wanted to give me. So this guy, the Councilman Adam Magoo, showed up. I showed up at the Park City Women's Club. And I know he's a Democrat, but I was asking why was he here. Then it turns out the Democratic mayor endorsed him. All the Democrats were behind him. Turner was behind him. He's behind Turner, the Democrat here. And I exposed him at the meeting. And I started to go into more meetings. And one of the things that troubled me, and somebody's got to explain this to me, Republicans fought to free slaves. Let's go back into the history for a second. Republicans, about 300 Republican men who are fathers, brothers, sons, cousins, neighbors. Those men died on the battlefield. About 700 and something thousand people died in the Civil War. 350 Republican men gave their life to free those slaves. The Republicans have children now. Their fathers died on the battlefield. It wasn't only just that. The Democratic community regime, I should say, organization, wanted to keep blacks in slavery. And that's what this battle was about. Even after slavery, in my research, they created laws and policies that if a black man did something that was minute, you would charge him this amount, and he would go back into the prison system because he can't pay it, and then back out into the cotton fields. And when that didn't work out too well in 1964, Republicans says, well, we're going to give black folks the right to vote. And Democrat says, well, no, we're not going to do that. They're not going to get the right to vote. So Democrat was George Wallace, Jim Crow, everything that was against the black community was Democrat. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, the walk in Salem across the bridge. I had to learn all this stuff because I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know which side I really wanted to be on. So the Democratic Party created all these atrocities against black folks, coming up all the way to 1964. And I'm in Dallas now, and the same Republicans who fought against General Lee and all those who wanted to keep slavery and white supremacy is on the Democratic side. So now I find that the Democrats are fighting to get rid of their history of racism. Because they're guilty now. Now that the black folks are free and they can vote and they need those votes, they switch their philosophies to Republican philosophies. And Republican, I think, got so irate that they decided to just be negative and not take it back. But those are Republican philosophies that you're allowed to let go, and it's now in the hands of the Democrats. This is your fight. This is your victory. This is your bragging right. So it confuses me as to why does a Democrat have your scepter? Why do they have your victories? And why they're using it against you? And so I go into the Republican Party, and all I see was fight to keep the Confederate monuments. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to me. Didn't your fathers, brothers, cousins, and sons died on the battlefield? Didn't General Lee and his men murder them and kill them to keep white supremacy and blacks on the cotton field in chains and shackles? So if you go against removal, now I'm a history buff, so I don't really believe in removing history. No argument was ever really made. No decent, good argument was ever made from anyone to keep those monuments in Dallas and other places, and that's why they went after it. So anyway, everything that I've seen in the Republican Party in Dallas seems to be out of the mouths of Democrats. So did you switch party? Because I had a black guy working for my newspaper in New Jersey, and he said, Sirrano, you know the party switched, right? I said, that can't be true, because now we have confusion. We've got confusion if we've got Democrats in the Republican Party. And I didn't believe him. And I said, Church Boy, his name was Church Boy, it was Durham. I said, that's hard to believe. He says, no, there are a lot of Republicans who went to the Democratic side, a lot of Democrats, and it's confusion. It's a massive confusion right now. And that's why they can't get their acts together. And Republicans need to go back to their main fight, their main talking points, which is take back your victory where you fought to free black folks. And now Latinos and the rest of us sharing that. So it was all about Susan Fontaine and a whole bunch of other people in the Republican Party were fighting to keep this white supremacist monument and couldn't make an argument as to why they wanted it kept, not even a historical argument. At first, I thought it should be kept. But then I started to do my research, and I'm looking at the council meetings, and I'm feeling the pain of the black and white community that was ignored by the councilman in District 10 and says, I'm going to vote for the Confederates anyway, it doesn't matter to me, because there are people in the party that wanted him to. And he couldn't make a decent argument that 12 members of the Dallas City Council is listening to the community and you're not. This is white supremacy. But it's in the Republican Party. So can you imagine the black votes in the city of Dallas looking at the Republicans and looking at the Democrats? And the Democrats are sounding like the guys who freed them on the battlefield. The Democrats are sounding like the Union. The Democrat is sounding like the ones who voted to give us the right to vote, which they actually were against. The Democrats were the one who were fighting against Rosa Parks, but they fought for Rosa Parks, but they fought against her sitting on that bus. So when the black community, which is the talking point today, the black community is catapulting everything to victory for people. Even though the majority of voters are still whites, the platform seems to be step on the Democratic issue, the black issue, and then you win. So the Republicans are no longer stepping on the black issue, who they saved. The Democrats are. And it confused me when I see people in the Republican Party fighting the Democratic fight of 1964 to 1886, I think. 1854. I'm very confused. So I need somebody to explain to me from the Republican Party, did you fight to get rid of General Lee? Didn't you fight to kill him? Didn't you fight to stop him? Didn't you fight to make sure he wasn't going to win the battle to enslave blacks? Didn't you sacrifice 350,000 of your brothers, sisters, fathers, and sons to the death, to be maimed, to have muskets, bullets take out their arms and their eyes, and to stop General Lee from keeping slavery? Wasn't that your fight? So in the Republican Party now they're fighting to keep General Lee. I think that's a curse on the forefathers of white Republicans, real Republicans, who fought that battle. And that's why it's confusing to me. You need to pick up the scepter that you fought for. You need to go back and fight for what your forefathers fought for. And that is the release and the freedom of the black community, Latino community. Did you know there was no real representation for the Latino community in the city of Dallas? You have, 3 Latinos up there, I think? But all they care about is more gay rights than Latino rights. And they have something called a welcoming committee, which is, it leaves the people in there to struggle. But there is no citywide representation for Latino. Even in District 10, there's 0 representation for the Latino community in my district. 0. And I plan to change that. There is 0 representation for the black community in District 10 because it's all a white issue. And so the Republican Party concentrates on monuments and putting more blacks in jail because this woman, Susan Fontaine, again, who keeps showing up, she wants curfews because she doesn't like black kids walking around in her neighborhood because she's scared. The councilman have a map that he gives out that takes people away from the black community and shows white people how to map away from those communities because they're crime-ridden communities. This kind of racism is what's destroying the Republican Party. But just remember, Councilman Adam Magoo is not a Republican. He doesn't fight for Trump. He doesn't fight for any Republicans running. He doesn't support them. He doesn't go to their campaign, to their headquarters. I go to all the Republican headquarters. And I support Democrats who are willing to change the city too, to make it a better place. Not because you want power, because you got to understand the reasons that Democrats get elected in Dallas is not because they're smart. It's not because they're frugal or economically intelligent or legally intelligent. They get elected on issues And the biggest issue is the gay issue. The biggest issue is the union issue, the green issue, the wage issue, the insurance to stay home a few days, families leave issue. Those are the issues, those tiny little stupid issues. Not stupid in the sense that it's stupid. Stupid, it's just in the scheme of things. If you fix the giant problems in the city of Dallas, you won't have to worry about the wage or the gay issue or the union issue, all those issues. Those are small pillars to a bigger giant pillar of fixing the budget, making laws, crime out of the city, and balancing the budget helps all of that. Knowing the laws and proper laws to bring in and pass as policies help that. Republicans have not done that in Dallas. Matter of fact, the party is so divided. You know, when I think about the Republican Party, and I watch these videos and I read these stories, it's like the leaders, the men, would walk with stature and power into a room, and everyone know this is our leader, and whatever we say goes. You look at the Republican Party today, if Cruz or Rubio or one of these local guys or even the governor comes into a room, the respect is not there in the party. And there need to be somebody who is ruthless. And I hate to use that word, but it's ruthless is the word that's good in every environment with a good taste of salt. Ruthless and demanding and authoritative and forceful, and making sure that the Republican Party understands if you get out of line, and I learned this from the Democratic chairman of the Democratic chairman of Passaic County, who is now the state chairman. This man would walk into a room, and everybody knew that was the boss. You could not run against another Democrat because you'll be going against him. When U.S. Congressman Bill Pascrell had a rival, another Democrat that wanted to run against him that Obama endorsed, and the party endorsed Bill Pascrell. Obama wanted this guy to be in power because Pascrell hated Obama. And there was a battle, a local battle. And the chairman walks in and says, this guy is the enemy. And he was the enemy. And that's basically the kind of blacklist that Republicans need in the city, first in the state of Texas, starting with Dallas. Republicans needs to go back into the black community. Here's how it starts. You go back into black community. You tell them you're here to help them. You give them the resources. You give them the help. You work with them. You hold their hands. You let them know, look, my father gave your life to help you, and we're coming back to take you back home. That's the battle cry. We're here to take you home. Because all these policies leaving you in crime and poverty and welfare is killing you. And they're teaching you to hate us when we came to help you. And that needs to be broadcast high, low, and wide. And after you finish taking care of the Democrats that your fathers and forefathers fought and died to be free, that's no longer free, because welfare doesn't make you free. I think you need to start going up and dealing with who you want to put in office. And chairman here is Anderson. And, he's a good guy. He seems like a good guy. I supported him. I thought he'd be a great leader. But he doesn't have the guts to stand up to anyone and say, look, you are not going to do this. You are not going to do this. This is the choice, and we're all going to lobby around this choice. We're all going to rally around this choice. That's what that guy, his name is John Curry, and that's what he does. He said, this is the choice. And everybody goes on against his choice. When Phil Murphy wanted to run for governor, he said, this is the choice. Sweeney, who's head of the Senate, and a whole bunch of other guys, the mayor of Jersey City wanted to be the governor, and this guy, the chairman, just walked up and says, no, Murphy's the guy. And everybody would back off. And they did, because they knew he meant business. He will viciously go after anybody that interferes with his candidates. Republican Party does not have that. The closest thing to that is, frankly, Donald Trump. You go against him, and he's trying to protect the party, he will go against you. And why is he doing that? Because I want to protect the base. And you're disrupting the base. You're causing a problem in the base. You're splitting the cells. You're splitting off. You're joining all kind of wayward organization like the Lincoln Project and everything else. You're trying to destroy the core conservative value. And we don't have that on a city, county, or state, Texas state, power. And that's what we're missing. So my business is to make sure conservative values stay alive. I do not necessarily want to demean or judge or destroy those who call themselves Democrats. I think minority Democrats are victims. They don't know they're victims. Jesus had to face the same problems. Saving the people who are victims, who don't know they're victims, and is fighting to vote to kill you while you're trying to save them. He went up against the leaders. He did not go up against the people. And I think what we need to do is, if it's we at all, I like to be an independent because I can say these things. And somebody tried to tell me, I don't want you to party. I don't care. But it's going to be said. Clean up your act. The Republican Party needs to change its philosophy. Stop trying to save statues and monuments that belongs to the Democrats and try saving black folks. Try going into their community and asking them, what can I do for you? How can I help you? My fathers died on a battlefield for you to be free, and you're still not free under these welfare policies that are all these killings and murders in the community. How can I help you? How can I lock on and attach on back to my forefathers and continue their fight to free you from the hands of the Democrats? And I think Latinos, and I have a whole thing on Latinos, I think Latinos play a massive role in the city of in the state of Texas and throughout the United States in keeping conservative values. But once the Democrats come and make them feel sorry for themselves, and the racist Republicans, get away from them. Well, the racist Republicans give you an opportunity to be rich and wealthy, to work hard, to teach your children the skills, to motivate, to empower, to be ambitious. And when you go from being a conservative to a Democrat, you have to give that up because they're just going to feed you welfare and take care of you, and your cities are going more crime, less jobs, less place to live. It's why Republicans are failing, because you don't want to go back into those communities and continue to fight your forefathers fought for. And so there's a new generation. A new generation is not blacks. The new generation is Latinos. Latinos are the fillers for the failure. And women are the failures for the failures of the men who wouldn't grow and fight and stand up and put on a suit and say, you know what? Choose me. I'm going to teach myself how to stand up in front of a camera, how to speak, how to say what the party or what the philosophies are for the conservative values. And I'm going to sit in that seat and debate anyone who's willing to take away and fight for those values to say that their failed values is better than these. And you have to train your children to be strong men. And you won't have to have 15 women running for office because they became stronger than your men. Anyway, so this is Sirrano Keith Baldeo. Thanks for watching. And my question is why it is that Republicans are fighting for democratic issues, including the monuments, including all of the not getting involved in the black community, all the racism, all the things, the welfare, all those other things that Democrats, equality in the workplace, all those things that the Democrats stole from you, strong economics, financial improvement in communities, development in those communities. You can't just try to you just can't, wall yourself off and dig yourself in a ditch and say, well, who's going to win this battle? Because what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to go to the black community, piggyback on them, steal Republicans. They're going to steal Republicans from you because these talking points, these philosophies are in the blood and the spirit of those Republicans that are on your side. And if you're not going to take that back, if you're not going to keep fighting for what your fathers died for, you're going to lose more people over to the Democrats. And those people, when they see who are racist, when they see space here, they're going to come over here. And you're going to get that switch, and you're eventually going to lose big. So I just want that question answered. Why are people in the Republican Party fighting for all these issues that belongs on the doorsteps of the Democrats that identify them as racist, including the Lee Monument that killed most of your fathers on the battlefield? Why aren't you against that? Because it represents what your fathers fought against. That was killing and raping and lynching black folks under that monument. You know, like I said, I'm for history, and I hope monuments have a space, because there's a lot of Confederate people still alive today, and they want their history. I don't think they're necessarily racist for the most part. There are racists, but I think if they want their monuments, then you should have it in your community. You shouldn't just have it in a black community. So nobody made the argument as to why the historic part of it should stay, and that's why they lost the battle. This is Sirrano. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.